In a previous podcast, and this was building up from some questions from my archive, this idea of cheating in wargaming. We explored it a little bit. We explored some of the things that you might be confronted with, some considerations to think about, and I pushed that up to my archive. It's under there in the wargaming playlist. I made mention of cooked dice on there, and I couldn't find the video, the podcast, where I kind of went into detail a little bit on this idea of soft cheating and hard cheating. And this was just my analogy, kind of pulling in from Stage Magic and some other things. Essentially the idea that soft cheating is manipulation of the dice, misdirection, things that at least the person cheating has invested some skill or at least has the fortitude to try and pull something over on you based on their skill. Hard cheating is stuff like loaded dice. Requires no skill, no investment whatsoever. And while both are there to defraud you, the difference is soft cheating, when you get caught, the player will often say, well, you didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. It was a misinterpretation. I forgot the rule. And maybe. You get caught with loaded dice on there, you're caught with loaded dice. So it's very challenging. And I mentioned giving examples of this cooked dice, and I wanted to follow up on that. This is the easiest way to cheat, and I don't feel bad talking about this because it's very easy to detect even if you try and do it carefully. So if you try and do it, you'll get busted. Consider it a warning out there if you're thinking about it, or if you're going to do it on there. Although we did do the opposite for effect once. We can admit to that now. The names will not be named, but it was an interesting thing. So what we see in Warhammer 40K, this usually exists in a gaming system where there's a lot of dice on there. Something like BattleTech, which you guys know I enjoy, you're using 2d6. So if one of those dice are faked, and it's rolling 5s and it's rolling 6s consistently, you're like, hey, what the heck is up on there? You're not using a large dice pool. Other games might have a dice pool of 5 or 6 dice, but Warhammer 40K, you're rolling 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 dice, massive bucketfuls of dice on there. Dice are on the table, dice are off the table. A lot of dice now are custom. Maybe you have the picture of your chapter on a 6 or skulls on a 1, but they're still plastic dice. And cooking the dice works well with really, really mass-produced, inexpensive dice. I like Chessex dice. I do for the price point and the entry, especially for D&D. But Chessex dice or mass-produced, the old GW Cube dice, are perfect examples. It's just like regurgitated plastic with marker pips on it, and that's what you're utilizing. Literally what you do is you cook the dice in the microwave. You will take a 6 and put it up, because 40K, 5 and 6 good, 1 and 2 bad, 3 and 4, I don't know, we got to look it up in the rules. Out of 50 dice, out of 20 dice, out of whatever dice you have in that cube, you take 5 or 6 or 7. You put them with the 6s up. You put them with the 5s up. You blast them for 30 seconds. You stop. You blast them for 30 seconds. I don't know the exact science on there. You're going to have to play around with it. Depends on the microwave, depends on the density of the dice, depends on the production quality of the dice. You're looking for the lowest production quality possible. Physics being what they are, it's going to melt the inside, it's going to pull it down a little bit, it's going to just tip off the weight of the dice. Out of a batch, like, I don't know, if you did 10, some of them aren't going to be successful, but 3 or 4 are. And now what this means is every time they're not loaded. The dice are not loaded. There's no weight in them. There's no magnetic click in them. It's nothing to detect. But when you mix those in with the rest of the dice, you can be sure by some mathematical formula that they're going to roll, and they're going to roll 5s and 6s or whatever you need in your system on there. They will be disguised in that pool of dice on there. Somewhat hard to detect. The way tournaments got around this a long time ago, Tape measures are another way dealing with that type of stuff. We'll leave that for another time. Games that use a tape measure versus a movement stick versus games like Battletech where a hex is a hex is a hex that you move. What you would see, what you used to see in some tournament events was part of your entrance fee was here's a free tape measure and here's a free cube of dice. And anyone not using the provided dice, your custom dice or your other dice, you're out. You're disqualified for that mission, that round. And the reason for this, again, because it was so easy to potentially do this. Now, we see it less and less. Dice quality of really custom dice for your army with markings and squads has gone up in quality and down in price. So you do see less and less of it, but I'm sure there's someone new to wargaming that read this and thinks they're ambitious on there and does that. So that's when I mentioned cooking the dice, I guess like cooking the books, although you don't literally cook the books, you literally cook the dice with cheating. A number of years ago, we love this guy. We love him. I love him. And he has a lot of opinions with 40K. The problem is most of the time, those opinions are correct on there. So it's not just that, he's telling you how to play the game and he's telling you tactics. He happens to be right on it. So it doubly annoys you in a good way. And as a joke, we took his cube of dice on there, and these were like the most generic Games Workshop, like even GW inflated prices, $5.99 dice cube, which they got for 49 cents. And we borrowed that. The place we were playing at had a little kind of cafeteria type thing. Literally, we liberated those dice and we cooked those dice like crazy. We cooked them with all ones. Like half of them had ones coming up. We didn't even care how much it showed. And in the next game, we all had really a great time laughing because the number of ones that were rolled, especially at the time playing Space Marine Terminator's Deathwing, was just getting brutalized on there. You've got a 2-up save and you've got multi-wound models and you've got Feel No Pain at the time, 4, 5, 6 with a chaplain, and you're just consistently rolling ones and you have no idea what the heck's going on, but you got to use your bone white GW dice because they match your bone white Deathwing Terminators and everything looks sexy, but you're losing 8, 9 Terminators a turn. Round 4, you're just done. What's happening on there? So the example can go both ways on there. We all chipped in and bought him a custom set of proper, respectable, first company Dark Angel Deathwing dice for that, but literally cooking the dice. I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm sure it happens once in a while. I hear stories of certain, neophytes and young bloods to 40K looking to make it to that Battle Brother status and trying to do whatever they can on there. In your gaming group, in your meta, is this something that still happens? Is this still something that is going on? And to what capacity? But literally cooking those dice.